So, as Brinda mentioned, my background is in customer experience, but the last 15 years I've worked for airlines and the governing body for the commercial airlines. So my background is in aviation, but specialized in customer experience. And before I start, I'd just like to let everyone know that I have a crowd here sitting with me as well. So I'll try to balance where I'm looking and try to get everyone involved as much as possible. But I'm trying to manage both the physical crowd as well as the online crowd. So again, in terms of my background, aviation was something that I was passionate about. It's actually from my parents. My mother worked for Sri Lankan Airlines for 35 years, so it was like natural progression for me. But in terms of customer experience, it was not my passion. It's not what I studied to be. It's something that I've accidentally fallen into, and which I've now really grown into that role. And I am actually quite passionate about it as well. So before I start off with this, I just like to let everyone know that customer experience is a lot more in the sense of concept. Rather, it's more how you feel, what are your thoughts. It's more the emotional side of it rather than the actual tangible things. Of course, there are tangible elements. So even in this session, if you guys have any questions, if you want to clarify something, I think how I do it is to have those clarifications and we go on. Of course, we can have a question answer session at the end, but let's see. And if you all don't mind, and please do raise concerns if you do have, based on the feedback that you gave signing in for the registry, I did have a look at some of your organizations. So I might be speaking about it. If you have any concerns, let me know. It's nothing critical or nothing bad. It's just what I saw. Likewise, I will be talking about some of the other brands or what you see generally globally, what's recognized to all. Again, it's not picking on a brand or not. It's just my opinion, and in terms of examples, that's the best way to go about it. So feel free to interrupt me and ask questions at any point. Again, customer experience is a model that also applies to large organizations, and where my background is last 10 years in Singapore, working for a contact center that handled calls from Pakistan and New Zealand and everything in between, where we did 10,000 queries a month. So I know this crowd and the participants are here are more, they're doing from the feedback that I've gotten also, that you are doing dual roles, customer service, as well as your role, your owners, you have your hand in that. So that's fine. So while some of the concept might be a little bit more bigger scale, so a lot of it can be applied to you as well. And for me, the object of this session, what I can pass to you, and it's in the subject as well, it's more about the mindset. It's about, maybe you haven't thought about customer experience in a way that maybe I can show it to you today, right? So to start off with, maybe if couple of you guys want to tell me, in your opinion, what is customer experience to you? Because again, there's absolutely no wrong answer, and customer experience, like I said, it's more emotion. So if anyone wants to have a go, anyone have a go at saying what customer experience is for them? Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Everyone gets. Hi guys, so I'm Harsha. So
I mean, I can say it will go through.
That's okay, that's fine.
So customer experience, what I see as some sort of a streamlined way all of your customers see you as, like, sort of the brand, like, how you communicate your brand identity in a very streamlined way for all customers.
I think you actually hit the nail on the head. That's pretty much where my description of customer experience is, right? So if you go have a look at here. So basically, it's customer experience. It's all the interactions, whether it's a process, a system, or the people in your organization. Every interaction with the outside customer is customer experience. And I would personally term it is that your brand promise, how that goes to the customer is customer experience. Basically, you position your brand, you position yourself, and the experience, how the customer gets it is the whole customer experience process. So what we are going to look at today is pretty much that. And when you move higher up the ladder, so first it's the interactions. Customer experience management is taking it to the next level where you take more control and ownership of that process. And finally, the holy grail of customer experience is customer experience optimization, where your customers are basically at a level of loyalty where they are advocates for you. They do most of the work for you in a sense. Starting with word of mouth, but extending to a lot of other things, which we can check out in the next slides. So today's sessions will cover a few of these things that are there, because these are the components of customer experience. I have to say at the beginning, the most important thing for me is the culture and leadership, right? Because if the top management does not believe in customer service, does not believe in customer experience, then it will not move down. And I know from experience, an organization will do a customer experience week, give everyone a mug and a t-shirt with the customer experience. That's the absolute wrong way to go about doing it, because that lasts for 1 hour. So for me, from my experience, if you are going to focus on customer experience, it's something that has to go top to bottom. And you as the owner, you have as the CEO, the general manager, or the major decision maker in the organization should have that mindset change, that customer experience is absolutely important. And despite his alleged employment practices, Jeff Bezos is one a good example. In 2003-4, I think, he went to their call center and stuck around a day answering the calls. And if any of you are at the owners, the senior person in the organization, step one is that. And some of you are probably or are in touch with your customers. And if you're not, this is where the start is. You need to listen to what they're saying. You need to hear them say. So that mindset, so the customer experience journey starts with the manager, owners, whoever is at the highest authority, having that mindset, focusing on customer experience and thinking of it as a budgetary division. If most of the time customer experience is like okay, ad hoc thing, we need to do this, you have your customer experience, but it has to be part of a financial decision making process of the company, right? Good example of customer experience, and we've talked about what is customer experience. It's, for example, Audi, right? When you think of Audi, but first thing they brand, what they're known for is the safety, right? And as a product, it's a car that takes you to A to B. But when you think of Audi, you're immediately drawn to safety. So that's the experience the customers have had with it, plus the message, plus the branding that they've delivered as well. You can't safety, yeah. Okay, I'll give another example. IKEA products, right? End of the day, they are furniture. But what they have, what the customer experience is a DIY, no need for a drill. You can all do it with your Allen wrenches supplied with the furniture. So that is the customer experience. And if I ask you guys to close your eyes for a second, and think of walking into a coffee shop, right? If you think of walking into a coffee shop, I can detail you what you're imagining right now. You will imagine a barista with a green apron on. You will have the blackboard with the thing behind the prices, the sizes of the cups. You will have the they are selling items, merchandise on a cupboard next to it. You imagine going there, ordering, collecting somewhere else. But if you really think about it, coffee shops have been around for 200 years, right? My first experience with a coffee shop is the one in front of my school, where we went and had a coffee for $5. And if I was asked you to imagine, you could be imagining having a coffee in Italy in a balcony looking over something, or in South America, but this, if more often than not, the image that we'll imagine is this process of a green apron, and it's purely from Starbucks, because that's the experience they have given to the customers. It's either the customer will know it through that, or the competitors have started copying that model, right? So that is what you're experiencing. So they've done it to that level that when you think of coffee or having a coffee, more often not that's the image in your head. And if you notice, Starbucks don't advertise. They don't do mass media advertising at all. What they have done is they have got a experience out, a custom experience, and they've been able to successfully replicate that experience, whether it's US or whether it's India or whether it's Singapore, right? So that is the customer experience. I mean, when I say that is the customer experience, that is also part of the customer experience. So that you are not sold primarily on the product, you're not sold primarily on anything else, but this itself is a selling tool. Any questions up until this point? All right. So end of the day, for the customer, in terms of your relationship with the customer, the number one problem or number one enemy is boredom. You're giving the same product, the same boring way, the same problem. So when you think of customer experience and your customer, you have to delight them, you have to differentiate them, you have to surprise them and excite them. So that's a lot what we are going to be talking about down the line. So that's what, and customer experience, why? So again, I've put up a lot of statistics. If you Google importance of customer experience, you will see page after page of statistics like this, like how that is the difference maker now more than anything. So, we know the old school 4P, Kotler's 4P, the strategies, right? So price, place, product, all that. But with customer experience and the shift in the global e-commerce and global marketplace, those 4Ps are outdated, because the product, everything is a commodity now. You are hardly gonna get some like your mind-blowing product. Whoever has most of the successful ones are commodities even, but it's not like the old school commodity. You don't get a Rolex new brand that can do what Rolex does, right? So that product component of the 4Ps is now everything is a commodity. Price, irrelevant, because there are so many price comparison sites, platforms, irrelevant. Promotions, irrelevant, because because of the price comparisons, everyone's fighting that there is no promotions. And again, place, there's no exclusivity, everything is sold online, right? So in terms of that, the traditional differentiators are a bit more null and void these days, and customer experience seems to be taking a much bigger role in your product or in your organization, and should be treated that way as well. It shouldn't be an afterthought or a okay, I'm doing this, but let me just also handle the customer service. I understand there are practical difficulties when it's a startup, because you don't have the manpower, you don't have the resources to have a customer support team or person. So, but it's something that you will, at some point when you scale, it's something that you seriously need to look at, and it's something that shouldn't be put off, right? And the beauty of customer experience is it also ties down with every other part of your organization. And if you look at the slides here, sales, what are their main goals? The sales is identifying potential customers. But by being the customer, let's say if you take the customer service side, they are the ones talking to, they are the ones getting the queries from the customers. So they have that information. So it should be part of that sales department. If you look at every other, whether it's customer service, compliance, even collection and finance, they are the team of collection and finance is to receive the money, and there are difficulties. But customer service is that division that will help you reach them in a empathetic way to these customers and people and get those collections. So even HR, if you are known to be a proud customer organization that is thriving on customer experience, that brings pride to the employees as well. And this is something that's there's been so much research on companies that are actually doing the customer experience instead of giving the T-shirt and the mug. So in a way, the customer experience / customer service team, your company departments or divisions, I know it's some are small startups, so it's not like a dedicated department, but someone is doing it. Those people or departments act in a silo. They do their role. What is assigned to them, they do that role. Customer experience could be the roof on the house that connects all the silos together if you manage it well. And that is the other benefit on top of the other, the profitable benefit. Customer experience as customer service also unifies your organization in the sense that everyone works in one direction, right? Any questions so far?
So Sandeep, you're saying that customer service is really everyone's job within the organization, right? Regardless of where you sit.
Absolutely. Because, it's very difficult, and I've worked in larger companies and smaller companies. Sometimes customer service is treated as something, oh, that's not my job. There's a customer service team doing that. It's not my function. So if again, this is part of that mentality mindset switch where you need to put importance on the customer service, because it's a support functions that not only serve the customers, but it also unifies you internally and bridges the gap between the internal stakeholders and the external stakeholders.
Yeah, understood.
Yes, sorry, you.
Yeah, if you can, Sandeep, also relate towards the B2B side of things of customer experience as well, because now take the B2C side of things, you know on a specific day your customer will be free to a call. But when you take the B2B side of things, your work hours is their work hours. Right? So
correct.
From that angle, what kind of side do you see when it comes to, for example, like, Six Video mostly works on human resources. So they have the time, so they, at the same time when they're managing interviews, they have to deal with us as well. So what kind of a customer experience can we provide for such a, always busy scheduled set of clients?
Let's get to that. Again, nothing changes, right? It's nothing, whether it's B2C or B2B, nothing changes, right? The customer experience is the same. Even if you're B2B, he or she is your customer. So this customer experience part doesn't change, right? So when should you think about customer experience? To be honest, what was thought of a couple of years ago was 2020 was going to be the year where customer experience definitely becomes more important than any of the 4 Ps. So this is something of yesterday. Like it may be covered with other names. You could be customer success, customer engagement, customer support, customer handholding, customer whatever, but it's still it's the same thing, right? So this is now it's definitely the time to really think about it if you haven't already. And I'm sure everyone has done it in their own sense, but take it more of a not a support function, but a main player in your organization. So today's discussion will go through these items. So benchmark and define your differentiating customer service. So it's really important that you differentiate this customer service, right? Develop a strategy for CX, organize and prepare the whole organization. This is what I meant by the top-down effort or a top-down strategy, where it starts from the top and it has to go through the company and everyone has to buy into this, right? When I was in my customer service role, people have asked me, do you work for us or do you work for the customer? And for me, that's the best compliment I can get, because end of the day, and what I remind them also is that I work for you, for the company, on behalf of the customers, right? End of the day, they pay your salaries. That's if you are unclear the importance of a customer, they pay your salaries, but that's it. So why shouldn't you put the most effort in that area as well, right? Executing your strategy, again, it's no point talking about it, having it until because there is detrimental side of promising something and then not delivering it as well. And in a way, all the playbooks say that under promise and over deliver. But Sri Lanka as a marketplace is pretty much over promising and under delivering. They're like, oh, this stuff I'll get to you in 5 days. Not even a call to say, no, we can't make it on 5 days. So in a sense, there is, for example, if I ask any of you, what is the Sri Lankan company that is known for customer service? Right? I'm sure there are, but there is nothing that stands out. So there is a scope to do that customer experience. And for a population, or I'm sure you guys are dealing internationally as well. I'm just taking in terms of Sri Lanka, there is a scope for someone to lead the way in that as well, because no one has done it. And it doesn't have to be visible. One good example is there's this company that provides a service. I guarantee you, everyone will be using it at least a couple of hours a day. It's not a one-off thing that you buy. You have to pay monthly subscriptions. Everyone uses it. Everyone talks about it. Guarantee that none of you all have contacted their customer service for anything. I'm guarantee that you have not spoken to a customer service agent of this company. May have contacted for some reason, but not to the point you have to speak to someone. So I'm talking about Amazon, right? It's also a service provider, which most of us use and we use daily. And it's a recurrent transaction where you make monthly payments, right? But what they have done is not that they have an amazing customer service team. They have used the feedback, used the user experience feedback and build a product and a system that doesn't break down. That's also fine. They are not known for customer experience. They don't need to be, because they provide a seamless, smooth service or deliver their product and service. So customer experience doesn't necessarily mean customer service. It's the whole experience with your product, but the owner of that is customer service. Am I correct? The part about that?
I mean, Amazon, you were talking about Amazon. Many of the web services.
Just your subscription to Amazon Prime or whatever. Not this thing. Or for example, actually thinking of Netflix, but it's both are same.
Yeah.
Right?
What about automating the experience? For example, if you take Beats as an example, where entire customer experience is online. That's what they do. It's online, right? It's automated.
Yeah.
Right? So some set of crowds will find it easy rather than contacting or waiting online or whatnot. And then, a lot of companies are promoting use chatbots to, have a FAQ, have a AI bot, and all. So for a startup, that makes 100% sense. At the same time, it's automated, and at the same time, you're like getting a lot of things off your plate. So from your standpoint of view, do you think still the classical human element is required when you're starting or when you're growing or wherever you, or is like just automate it and forget about it?
It's based on your customers, I would say. If your customers are 70-year-old plus people, let's say you're doing some medical service, right? Your customers are 60-year-olds and above. There is no point automating certain things because they require certain hand holding because the tech savviness is probably not as there as the younger crowd. So that what you want to do is customers, and I would say volumes as well. You don't want to be talking to 100 people on the phone because that's a cost. That's a resource cost to you, whether it's the person, the equipment, all that. So you need to understand, which we are coming to again in the future slides. You need to understand your customers and the volume and come up with the most suitable option for that. So my old company was at the point where they were training AI. They were training the AI to give automated, not even answers without any interference from a human. But those were more yes, no question. If you are a lawyer, for example, and you're providing legal services, you can't really do it that way. You need to be more, have a face-to-face or one-to-one conversation or whatever, right? So that depends on your customers, your business, and the volume.
So when you say volume, at what stage should a company consider, okay, I'm really in 10 people who are paying me, okay, I'm going to need them one. So what do you think the threshold is? Like, okay, if I take 50, 60 or how?
It's
because at the same time, it's like for customer to get a certain set of team to take care of your customer service, it's not easy as well, right? You know, there are more people to do it or you need to train them, there's a huge infrastructure.
Correct.
So how can we come into the determination of this, I achieve this volume, then I look at automation. That means ticket size is the issues, right?
Correct. In a way, it's size of the issue. For example, let's say your company has every day 10 people going to your website, looking for some information, looking at your website, they are not getting it, they call you, right? From the contact, right? And then all 10 of these are asking about, do you have this in red? And how much is the price? That doesn't require human interaction. That requires a FAQ on your website, right? And again, we'll go more to that as well. So it's like you have to make the whole customer experience process efficient. It is balancing that efficiency with the human touch, right?
Customer experience and all, you cannot plan it out and launch it at one pace. You need to start it off and then make it better day by day.
Absolutely, because it's using your knowledge of the experience and the feedback from the customer and coming up with the best practice and then looking for the next practice. So then making that next practice your best practice. Okay, I'll talk about that a little bit more as well. I'm sorry, a lot of questions from the people sitting in. Anyone online who would have any questions? Okay. So moving on to customer personas. This is basically, okay, your old school terminology would be customer segmentation. So this is basically who your customers are, or you have a rough idea who your customers are. But customer persona identification is identifying your customers in a more specific way that then you can plan the customer journey and put in the fixes that needs to be put in fixes. So instead of saying my customer is a 20 to 40-year-old male with secondary education or whatever, you are actually identifying who this person is, right? You might have multiple customer personas who are your customers. So let's have a short video. Maybe we can have a look at that and move forward.
At the most basic level, you should understand the age, gender, and geographical location of your audience, as well as the languages they speak. So we've got A, a 25-year-old male from Texas, B, a 16-year-old female from France, and C, a 32-year-old male from Canada. Already there's quite a lot of variation across this international brand's customers. So we'll need to define the personas a little more. The next step then is understanding why customers are coming to your business and what they expect to find. One of our shoe buyers may have a limited budget and so isn't looking for detailed reviews or information, but just wants to filter the lowest price models. Perhaps another persona type is an aspiring athlete and therefore wants to test out a range of models and benefit from expert recommendations. And our third persona wants a comfortable but stylish shoe for running around with their children, so is interested in the various colours and styles available. Now that you have an idea of who your audiences are and what they want, how do you know where to reach them? Customers are so used to being able to find what they want across platforms and sites that if you're not providing for them, they'll simply go elsewhere. As part of your strategy, you'll need to understand your customers' buying preferences, taking into account if one prefers to shop in store, another favours desktop computers, and if the third is more content to make purchases through their mobile device. Using these insights and developing rich characteristics about each of your personas means you can successfully tailor your strategy and communicate to each potential customer in more relevant ways.
So basically, customer persona is more of a specific identification of who your customer is, instead of being very generic about it, or everyone living in Colombo, or all males who like to do sports, or all females who like to do yoga. It's more specifically identifying who your customers are. There could be multiple. It doesn't have to be one. You could have 4 or 5 different types to understand the customer journey, to understand the gaps that you are currently having when they take that journey. Any questions here, anyone?
Hi, I'm joining online. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So Sandeep, this is about the customer personas that you were talking about. Now in my organization, just to give you a quick sort of overlook, we've tried building up different customer personas, but I think a lot of others, maybe who've tried this exercise, might agree that sometimes it's very difficult to understand what information you actually want to consider when you're building these personas. Sometimes you have so much of information, you just don't know which ones you should include and which ones you shouldn't. Are there like any tips to say, how you can narrow it down and say, these are the pointers that are going to help me build a better persona?
Right. For what you said, what you have built previously, what was your source of information?
It's mainly, so we are into like a services-based industry. It's mostly fulfillment for e-commerce businesses. So what we offer is shipping for different customers, and who will use different platforms. So you'll have your Amazon, your WooCommerce guys, your eBay, and all of that. And different customers are concerned about different things. Like for some of them, it will be purely price driven. For the others, it will be purely like experience driven. So the information that we've gathered has been based on whatever questions that we've asked customers.
So your source is the customers themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, the idea of this is to be as specific as you can. But what I understand from your description, it's not a very the type of business is not a type where it's a very specific customer type. You may have quite a few across the board. Is that it?
Yeah.
So I think that's fine. I mean, it's to, for example, the identification of persona is to better understand the journey in the sense what touch points they have. But if your customer persona is more generic, that just means you have to take into consideration all the touch points.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not narrowing down the customer persona to specific levels doesn't mean that exercise is off, just that it's a little bit more work that you need to look at most of the options. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think to a certain extent.
Because for someone like, so example, that we discussed earlier, like an older gentleman, and your primary customer is that, of course, your touch point won't be Instagram, right? Or something more techy like that. So it will be more the newspaper, the TV advertisements, right? So in that you going deep diving into the specificity of persona enables you to then when you look at the journey, you can be a bit more specific. But if the persona, and it's fine, it not so there are, for example, if someone who drinks Coca-Cola is anyone over 15 to any so you can't, it doesn't mean that you have to narrow every time. The type of your business and the type of your service or product makes your customer a bit more overall. But that just means you have to have a little bit more effort in the customer journey mapping and to make sure you cover everything.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And even for the customer persona, rather than their demographic, whether they are male or female, what you need to, for especially for customer experience, is to understand their thoughts, their feelings. What do they think when they are looking for looking for your product or looking for competitors? What are their thoughts and feelings? And that would also help you negate this issue in a bit, that you don't have to find out their age, rough age, or where they live. It's more a little bit more what they are feeling and thinking.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, if not, so this is the customer persona. So moving on to the customer journey. So customer journey, whatever you look at, will be 5 components. So in this, it's awareness, acquisition, conversion, fulfillment, and loyalty, right? Depending on the material that you will look at, you will have various words substituting some other words here. But conceptually, it means the same thing. So step 1 is the awareness. So this is without maybe looking for your product or services. This is they see a ad or they see something that creates awareness. Acquisition is they are in the selection process. That's where they look at a YouTube comparison video. They are looking at a blog written by someone who specializes in that product. So this is where they are narrowing down the selections. Conversion is where they actually purchase your product. Fulfillment is the after sales sort of, where they are in the existing customer and the repeat customer zone. And then the final stage of loyalty, like I said, this is the holy grail that we should reach out for, is the final stage. So customer's journey, if you map it out, it takes this path. And like I mentioned before, something that you need to focus on and empathize with the customer and understand what they feel and what do they think during their customer journey, rather than like what age are they or what exactly they're doing or their action. It's more the thought process, because customer experience, like I said when I started, it's more an emotional, there's an emotional component involved in that. So to address that, you also need to have that empathetic view of a customer and start this mapping process, think with that in a mindset. Again, when you're mapping customer journey, you have to get your whole team or a representative of each department involved, because it's an area where you need input. First of all, when you're looking at the customer, taking the customer's feedback and mapping it, you need to have as many varied views as possible. And second of all, it also is one place where you are getting in your non-customer service team members involved in this process and showing the importance of everything that happens with customer experience as well. So those two things are very important when you map the customer journey. Again, those two are used end of the day to plug delivery or customer experience gap. You will, once you map it, you will see, oh no, they are going here, but I don't have anything there. Or you will start to see gaps of what you currently provide when you map that journey. So it's to predict and then when you understand that, you will obviously predict the customer's behavior and try to improve it. So end goal is to plug all the gaps and improve the customer experience. A good example I can say about this is Apple, when they had the iPad, or they introduced the iPod, the musical thing. At that time, people were off the cassettes, off the CDs, the Walkmans, and moving into a new product, which is the iPod. But people had a major problem with the iPod is how to get the music in there, because either you're at that time, if any of you all remember that time, it was illegally downloading of LimeWare or paying, buying the CD, converting and getting it in your iPod. So they saw this problem, and then they moved on to something that is totally out of their business, out of their comfort zone, and they moved on to Apple Music, which is licensing the music and providing it to the customer through the iPod, and now you can just stream it. So that is a good example of where they were looking at the customer's behavior and seeing a problem that was a problem. I mean, not that they saw the problem before the customers did. Obviously, the customers or users knew that there was this, but they shifted even their fundamentals of the organization to address that problem. So that's a good example of it as well, because not only that, that basically, until about Spotify came and all that, that allowed them to dominate that market, not just the music hardware, but as well as the licensing and the other bit as well. So that's where you need to look at when you're looking at improvement. It's not fixing. You have to have that mindset to go wherever it takes you. Of course, it has to be a viable business opportunity, but you have to have that openness to go where the need is. So again, the 5 points that we discussed, you can see here itself, the names are different to my earlier site. So like I said, it will be different names. So this is a rough sort of path in that customer journey process of getting awareness to advocacy. These are the interaction points that they will have, not necessarily from your company, but from other sources. So all of us now, I know for a fact that when I think about wanting to buy something, it's in my YouTube ads or it's in my Instagram ads. So it's, the technology is at that level. So initially it's all those online ads, the pay-per-click advertisements, social ads, all that. And then when you're selecting between, let's say, 2 products, or finally going to purchase because they say an expensive purchase for someone, they think about it for about 150 days. I'm talking about not like an expensive meal, but a considerably expensive equipment per se. They think about it for 150 days. So that's the time if you don't plug those gaps, those are the times where they're going to fall out and fall into one of your competitors, right? So at that selected point, like I said, is when they look at YouTube videos, read blogs from expert on that, and they come to the purchase point. Then it's all purely the platform you have provided for the purchase, whether it's e-commerce or store or whatever that is more direct with you. And then it moves on to participating in community forums, FAQ knowledge base. If you see a lot of companies now, they don't do their own customer service. They have a community customer service where people answer between themselves. I personally, I'm not a fan of that, but that's also a cost-effective. It depends on the business as well. It's maybe certain businesses can be customer service can be managed through a community. Then when you moved on to the promotions, social, and then like I said, the final piece is where the customer is pretty much an extension of your customer yourself, right? Can I ask, have you guys had a recently really good customer experience that you can maybe talk to us? No, personally, I'm not the large scale one, like buying something in Sri Lanka, like for like an experience that you had one-to-one, which you was like, oh my God, this is so good. Do you recall anything? Anyone?
Hey, Sandeep, it's
Hey.
Ray.
Yeah.
So, well, a memorable customer experience, I'd say Hamidiya's, if you take in Sri Lanka. Whenever you walk in there, the way they treat customers, it's as if they have a dedicated person to walk around with you in the store for selections and always have like constant questioning with regards to what you're looking for. And if you seem to be giving a facial reaction where you seem like you're not interested in what's in there, they try to see if there's something in stock which is still not put on display. And so they take it to a whole new level. And I think that's something quite interesting and it's quite memorable. It's that experience as a whole is very memorable.
Sorry, I missed which company were you referring to?
Hamidiya's in Sri Lanka. It's a clothing
Alright.
store.
Right, perfect. So this is an example of advocacy where 15 people are sitting online and physically together, and when someone has to talk about a good experience, Hamidiya, and that so now it's going to be in our heads also that okay, Hamidiya, I mean, for customer experience, this guy was talking about it, right? So that is the level that you should try to reach with all your customers, because it's so invaluable. For let's say Hamidiya's, their marketing, let's say they go and out and speak, right? But they are being more generic. But when you say it, and when you say it to your friends and colleagues, there is much more weightage in that. I mean, old school say way you say it, it's word of mouth, but it's a bit more than word of mouth. Like, to give you, it doesn't have to be a big company, right? For recently, my fiance was thinking, oh, we are getting lockdown is like not being generous with on our belly line. How about we get a trainer? And being the macho sporty guy I was, and I'm like, hey, I pretty much played all the sports all my life. I'm not. What can a trainer tell me that I already don't know about? 5 months on, I've lost about 10 kg. I've learned basic things in a dumbbell, which I've done a million times. Some I've held it wrong and all that. And I was also apprehensive about the fact the trainer, or they are going to be like this gym Nazis who's going to be on your back. Or this guy was very kind, always smiling. So for me, I've been since I've been away for 10 years and been back recently. So there's a lot of things that I needed to be done. So I've been talking and interacting with a lot of companies. But if you ask me, this is the thing that like comes into my top of my head, because not only did the core function, which I'm happy about, but everything that came with it, if our time slot goes up by 10-15 minutes, he's still there, he's smiling, he's never angry, never pushing you to a military sergeant way. So for me, that's the experience in my head. And I'm again talking to all of you, and I'm pretty sure if you or your friend have a need to get a personal trainer, you probably reach out to me and ask who this person is. So that is the level of advocacy, and that is the level that we, as any company, should strive to reach with the customers. Because for him, he didn't do anything. He didn't give me discounts, or he didn't do anything more. But it's just that how he did the experience that he provided me is memorable to me more than 100 other experiences that I've had in the last couple of months. Okay, so that's how you get your customer journey mapping, is how you get find out the path to advocacy and making sure you fix all the problems that's already there. Any questions? Another aspect of this mapping this journey is that you will know and identify, other than gaps, you will identify places where you might want to incentivize people. So that's also another benefit of the customer journey mapping. can I ask you, everyone, and I hope everyone can answer me this question. Do your customers ask you for a discount? No. Right. If you, I mean, for the online participant, would you mind selecting the answer so we can have a quick look? So we'll get to that.
Guys, the polls are now open, so just remember to select yes or no, please. We have another 30 seconds left. Counting down. Sandeep, can I ask a question while we wait?
Standard operating procedures.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Sandeep. Can I ask a question while we
Sure.
wait? Yeah.
Sure.
So when Suresh was giving his example of, his customer experience, how he defined a really exceptional service was being followed around by somebody in store to meet your every needs. Do you think though that because if someone did that to me, I'd get really annoyed and I'd be like, leave me alone. I just want to shop.
Absolutely.
So what do you do then when you have two very, very different shoppers per se?
That's a very tricky question, and I think this is part of the customer service people, the people that are doing the customer service, and it's part of their skill set to know when to approach, when to push, when to stay back. I know it's not like a black and white answer, but that is where the skill set of the customer service or customer experience person comes into play. That ability to understand this, the intricacies of each different customer.
So to be able to read the room. Exactly,
it's read the room. You will have your company will say, okay, go do this, but then after that, whether you take a step forward, step back, is the experience and the skill set of that person.
Okay, so I'm asking that just so that to understand whether it's all about like emotional intelligence, right? I guess. And how do you train someone for that? Like, is that trainable? I don't know. Is it?
Let me have a slide on that. Let me come to that.
Okay.
So
can I end the poll?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can end it.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to end the poll, guys. Last chance, quickly.
So it's looking at the poll. I mean, I just want to have a quick idea about this. So your customer if your customers ask for discount, okay, some people chronically ask for discounts, so we have to discount them from this conversation. If your customers are asking for discounts regularly, that means there is a gap between your brand promise value and the customer experience. What they feel like what you're offering as a product, as a service, as a customer experience is probably not worth what you're asking for. So that's something you probably want to look at. Are your customers loyal? A lot of you say yes. Anyone who put yes want to say why they say yes? I'm keen to know if anyone put yes, why. So that is visible to you. So one point is that you see the customers advocating on your behalf. So that's a valid point. So that means a customer loyalty. So it's important to keep an eye out on that as well. Does your organization have SOP. Sorry if I put the acronym. It's standard operating procedure. It's something that I'll maybe talk about a bit later as well. That's pretty important as well to understand where you're diverting from and where do you need to come close to. High-paying customer versus low-paying customer. Do you value them the same? Yes. So a lot of you, almost 90% said yes. This, in fact, is a trick question. Not all customers should be valued the same way. Because high-paying customers deserve more of your time and your effort. Doesn't mean that you ignore the low-paying customers, but those loss won't be a big impact. So you service them by having a standard automated. That's why you maybe also should look at having a standard automated thing, because low-paying customers are not going to go into heavy negotiations and all that issue. They require basic service. So I think it's, as a customer, as someone who's talking about customer experience, it's wrong to say this, but that's reality. Not all customers are equal. And even though I'm talking about customer experience, customer, end of the day, the bottom line is your bottom line. You need to make customers profitable. So you have to do that in mind. If you focus on the low-paying customers as much as the high-paying customers, you will lose out on the high-paying customers because you're diverting your attention to everywhere else and it's not focused. So it's not, again, not to me, abandon your low-paying. They don't need as handholding as the high-paying customers.
Hi, Sandeep. Can I ask you something?
Sure.
Yeah. So I basically come from a service providing business. So we've been having, as we spoke about discounts, we've been having customers who actually tell us to reduce the prices of the services that we give them. Instead, they bribe us with stuff like they might give out good positive reviews and stuff. So
Right.
As soon as we accept that, we have seen them coming back. So is there a problem with the pricing, or is there something as such?
So first of all, culturally, Asia is a bit of a haggling culture. So I don't think you should worry about or that much of a concern, because culturally and it's not just Sri Lanka, part of most of the region, you always try to ask for a discount. So this point about discount, asking for discount and the relation between your brand value is maybe not so applicable as much as you would say in the West. But I think you maybe want to understand from one of your customers, why are they asking for a discount? Because you're pre-purchasing, you're happy with my product. Why are you asking? Again, don't put them on. Maybe, this is something that tactfully you might want to ask. And because generally discount mean that value is not perceived as much as the price that you put on it.
My users,
And
platform called so students ask for discount, they can't afford it. They get the value out of it.
That's what I said. In there are other. I'm not sure if the online participant heard this, but what he was saying is some of the clients are asked for discounts because the customer base is maybe rural and have less disposable income. And again, fair enough. I'm not saying just because it's asked for discount meaning there's no value. You have to take into these nuances of culture, of demographic into consideration. But if it's something where your customers can afford it and they are still asking it, it's not a crisis or it's not a critical thing, but it's something that you might want to check out as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. I'll move on. We have like half an hour left. I've quite a few slides. Let me go on. This is a small clip on the customer journey mapping. If you can have a look, and we can move on from that.
Welcome to the Playbook UX channel, your source for all things product and UX. In this video, I will be covering the definition of a customer journey map and when to use it, preparing the data, materials, and people for a customer journey workshop, components of customer journey map, creating the template deliverables for your customer journey,
and your role as a facilitator. I also included a link to a downloadable customer journey map in the description. All right, let's jump into it. What is a customer journey workshop? The customer journey workshop is a process of laying out the steps the customer takes along with a series of touch points and feelings your customer has towards your product or service. A journey mapping workshop helps companies do 3 things. 1, facilitate a common understanding between team members. 2, identify the gaps in the customer experience. And 3, explore potential new opportunities. In order to build products your customers love, you need to understand what they're experiencing when they interact with your product or service. In this video, we're going to be focusing on a high-level, end-to-end customer journey map. However, there are many different types of customer journey maps, and I outline the different types in another video if you want to learn more. So prior to starting the workshop, you want to make sure you have a few things prepared to make it successful. First, you should identify your primary persona. When working in customer experience design, it is important to focus on 1 or 2 primary customers. Other disciplines like marketing will have many personas, each having different demographics and characteristics that they can target. For UX, let's focus on targeting 1 persona that represents your main customer. Second, you should gather as much research as you can and make sure everyone in the room is bringing from the latest research. You can pull information from previous customer satisfaction surveys, support logs, analytics, competitive intelligence, and any other previous customer research you have conducted. I will touch on the specifics of each type of research in another video. So you can use research like moderated interviews, unmoderated interviews, contextual inquiries, surveys, diary settings, card sorting, and so on. It's important to make sure everyone in the workshop has a good base understanding of the customer you are creating the journey for. If you're starting without any research, we would recommend you go back and do some research to guide your workshop. Next, you should assemble the dream team. You're going to want people representing all functional areas of the business, including development, design, marketing, and operations. This will be different for every company, but think about key areas of your product or service and make sure people from both departments are participating. Ideally, you want a comprehensive team, and you don't want more than 8 people. More than 8 people can derail productivity. Lastly, you should prepare the materials. It is often helpful to have a template to work from. There are multiple different templates that you can use, but most of them have relatively the same components and will get the job done. In this video, we're going to start with the basics. However, feel free to customize it to meet the needs of your organization. It is also helpful to have a big whiteboard or printout of the template to stick on the wall. During the workshop, you should give everyone in the room a pad of sticky notes and markers. Let's jump into the template. The customer journey map template is a large grid. Across the top of the grid, it outlines the different stages the customer goes through while engaging with their product or service. Moving across the columns, the first box is the awareness stage, where the customer is trying to learn about the potential new solutions to their problem and recognizing the need. Next, we have the researching stage, where the customer is researching potential solutions. This varies widely by product. Some products customers typically make instant purchasing decisions, where other products customers spend endless hours researching, since there may be high switching costs. Next is the selection stage. This is where the customer makes the conscious decision to use your product. After that, we have the delivery stage. Once the customer has selected your product, how do they receive it? What happens? Lastly, we have the follow-up stage. What follow-up does the company do after the customer has consumed the product or service? Here, you want to focus on how do you retain customers or push them into being an advocate of your product. Let's dive into what's contained in the rows. We're going to start with what the customer is doing during each of the stages that we just listed. Write down the customer's behaviors and actions. Next, we want to understand what the customer is thinking. What are their thoughts, feelings, motivations, or needs at each stage? Are there any questions they need answered? Next, we have touch points. Those are each point of interaction between the customer, product, and company. Is there any communication or messaging? How are you doing that? Are you using a mobile app or website, or is it in person? Then we have customer pains. What things do we know are pains for the customer at each stage of the process? Our goal in outlining these pains is to address them and find solutions for them. The last row is opportunities. This is a summary of the problems and questions customers have, as well as identify potential opportunities that you can deliver to your customer. These are your action steps coming out of the customer journey and drive your product roadmap and research opportunities. The facilitator role is extremely important. The facilitator encourages everyone in the group to collaborate and keeps the meeting on track. As a facilitator, you should start by having a group brainstorm, using the boxes as guidelines, starting with the awareness stage. The group can write out each activity on a sticky note, paste it in that box on the journey mapping template. You're going to have to keep moving box by box until you finish the journey map. Your goal is to have everyone working together and feeding off one another. Following the workshop, you should convert everything written on the sticky notes into a shareable document. Also, remember that the customer journey map is a living document, and it should evolve and change as the product or service matures. Make sure to display the output in a prominent place in your office, and it should be referred to often. That's all we have in this video. Make sure to subscribe for more insights on product and UX.
I hope that exercise is somewhat clear. Again, there is so much content and material online. YouTube you can Google it, so you can figure out how to do it. What I can do is I can probably share the document, because we have a follow-up session.
Welcome to the Playbook UX channel.
We have a follow-up session next week, possibly, so we can maybe discuss what you can put on this. So this is something that we need to do. And again, I would say that it's already there under emotions, but maybe look at it a bit more in the sense of how the customer thinks, feels, and reacts to it, rather than more tangible things. Any questions on this? So moving on. So once you've done your customer persona and you've done your customer journey mapping, for me, I identify 3 areas that you can implement this. That is people, process, and systems. People, when it comes to customer service, again, it's one of the areas that you don't really look at it, because either, again, especially startups, it's someone doing dual roles, someone not the expert in the customer service role. People say, if you're getting a sales job, you have to get that guy who can sell the fridge to the Eskimo, right? And all this time, customer service has been like school leavers who wants to do something for 2 years before move on to this high churn industry function is customer service. People come, people leave. And in a way, that is the worst possible scenario, because like we discussed, it has an impact overall in the company, that value that they bring. So if that person trains, learns all about and leaves, that's a huge loss as well. So it's, again, I want to urge everyone to look at that role. Yes, if it's something that can't be dedicated to one person, at least the person doing it has to match both. For example, for me, I was involved in the recruitment part of it, because we were handling 10 languages, about 17 countries. We were hiring different, and then the cultural sensitivity, those things have to come, people who know about that as well. On top of that, it has to be one skills, or not a skills, but one of the traits is people who have empathy, who answer the phone, listen to the customer, and doesn't think, oh my God, when is this going to end? Or it is you, the one who feels that empathy. I know it's not a technical term, but empathy, bubbly personality, positive mindset, those kind of people. And I know, because I have grown up in that role, I know there are days a customer could shout at you for a valid reason. A customer could purely had a bad day at home with the partner and goes and shout at you. And it's not just, it's bringing your praise, religion. And I've had even a customer that I've tried to help, because that customer, this was 15 years ago at my time, long ago, where the customer was with a special needs kid. They were trying to go to Canada, and I was trying to get them a seat, which at that time, Sri Lankan Airlines, I was flying part way. I was trying to get a seat on the next bit, which is another carrier, which takes so 1 hour I was trying to get. They're so interconnecting network. I couldn't get. And at one point I saw like I got it. And my mistake at that point was I got it. I was excited for her and for them, because I was sitting with them for 1 hour, and then it went away because it's another airline's flight. And I understand she also went fully this thing, and she said, one day when you grow up and have kids, I hope your kid is a deformed kid. That's what was told to me. So I've had worse. I have no colleagues who have cried like day hour. So you need to have a personality or a person that can, I mean, this is an extreme thing, but people who can get shouted at or handle a problem, but not translate it to their work or take it home. Likewise, a customer service professional should be able to have an issue, a fight with your partner, but not come to answer the phone and pass it on to the customer, or the way your tone, your this thing. So again, sometimes the customer service recruitment is school leavers which you just grab and put them, thinking it's not, but it requires a certain type of person to do it right. And more than skill set, it's the personality and attitude. And even in the skill set, it has to be someone who has a huge capacity, because he or she needs to know what that department does, what this department does, what are the new products coming out, what are the price changes, everything. So they might not need to know everything about R&D, but they need to know something. Likewise with every department. So it has to be someone who has that capacity as well as attention to detail. Like my experience, those are the skill set. Training, again, very important, because majority of the time the customers contact you for a problem, and to resolve that problem, you need to know where the problem went wrong. For example, if it could be with the payment, it could be with the delivery, it could be with so when someone who the training should be given, as soon as they hear the problem, they need to know where to look, right? It's not you need to have the answer, you need to know where to look. And again, these training, so my role involved a lot of training as well. So that was my functions was training related as well. So what I can tell people is, you can teach anyone skills, right? But you can't teach attitude. Not overnight, at least. Maybe if you sit them with you for years and then you can rub it off, but attitude and personality are not something you can train people for. So that's why it's important when someone does a CS role or custom experience role for you, they should have that matching attitude and the skill set, and a lot of it is about having empathy. And in this personality classifications, you have this word for them, or it could be the bubbly person, it could be the extrovert. Introvert and a customer experience role is probably not a good idea. So those are the things that you need to pay important. And whoever this person you do, they need to sit with other departments, see that. So that's when you have these cross-functional rotations, is when they will know, okay, when they hear the problem, yeah, this is where I need to look, this is where I need to refer to. So that you need to give, I think, like the company owner, the CEO knows what's going on. In a much more low level sense, its customer experience team or person should be aware of it as well. In like a company where my background is, or my previous company where the company size is thousands, the training manuals, refresher manuals, processes and this is where I was asking previously about SOP, the standard operating procedure. Those are all mapped there. So you know what each person needs to do and each person what they shouldn't do. So that's where the SOP comes into play as well. So I said, based on the customer journey mapping, once you identify the gaps, I would focus it on 3 areas. People is one, the other one is systems, right? So I had from the feedback that you had given me, I had a look at some of the websites, and some of those websites, the contact was filling the form, the filler form. Would any of you whose website have that tell me what you would do when someone raises a question through that form? When?
As soon as I see it, I usually see it.
Right. So when I looked at some of the forms, it tells you name, your details and problem, but it doesn't tell you when you will get back to them, right? So a lot of the customer experience solutions is communication, talking to your customer, keeping them aware, updating him. It's so much easier to say, sorry, your product will be 1 day late, than not saying anything and dealing with the repercussions of the product being late. So you have to be upfront. That's why I said the personal is important, because these people who can handle that. getting shouted at. That's how it is. I mean, it's a part of the role, right? Ideally, it shouldn't happen, but that's how it is. So those doesn't mean that you need to have a chatbot that answers your company immediately. It's fine if it suits your company. It's fine to have that form, but tell them we will get back to you within 2 days, right? Then they know. Otherwise, if different people have different expectations of speed. When I say in my experience in my previous role, when someone in Australia says I want it now, that is within the hour. If someone in Sri Lanka says I want it soon, let's say not now, let's say soon, right? So when someone in Australia says I want it soon, it's within the hour. In Sri Lanka, it could be up to a week, So the different expectations are, the customer expectations of the experience is different. So you need to communicate and manage it. It's absolutely fine that you don't reply to you immediately, but you need to tell them when you will reply and stick to that timeline. A lot of the time, I know you guys, and I'm also a client or a customer of one of you guys who sell a certain product. I know you reply through Instagram, and I've had recently as well, they're saying, oh, this new product, we want it at 8 o'clock in the night, which is absolutely fine. But you're setting you up that every time I send a message to you at 8 in the night, that you're going to reply to me. That's what you're setting by. You said you will answer the questions as and when you see it, right? You might see it at 11 o'clock in the night, and you will reply. That's good. But tomorrow or day after, when your customers increase, when you have other things to do, are you going to reply it at 11? So then what is the person who received a reply at 11, who sends another one 3 months later at 11 and doesn't get it for 2 days? What is going to feel? So customers are us, right? So majority of us are reasonable. But what is important is communication, letting them know. Sometimes some big issue, you have to be upfront. It's a major issue. We need 5 days. Fine. Like I said, Sri Lankan tendency is to overpromise and underdeliver. You're tomorrow. But you know that you're not getting it tomorrow. He knows that you're not getting it tomorrow. So, but people, for the sake of, it's the same with our yes, no, right? We shake our heads, we can't say yes or no. So our communication is also a lot of the time ambiguous. The most important thing is not responding to your customer in the next hour. It's telling them you will get your response in that time, right? Then I know that now these other forms doesn't have that information. I send a form asking a question, right? For me, soon means today. I don't hear something. Tomorrow, my other option is sending another form asking what happened to my previous form. But you might, as a company, they might only be looking at it on a Friday. Fair enough. So you need to be clear in that communication and manage the customer's expectation. There is no need, it's good if you can reply in 1 hour, but considering startups, multiple roles, busy schedules, these things, you have to give yourself that leeway to manage it, but be upfront about it. It's worse not doing that than telling I'll come back to me in 3 days, right? So systems, coming back to systems is where you need to have. So if you know Instagram, Facebook, people contact you through that way. There are auto messages that you can send out. So you need to set these up. Google Analytics for your websites to monitor where they come and get stuck in. Do you all use that? Do you all see where they click on your website the most? Why are they not moving forward? Because there's something wrong in that. So you need to check Google Analytics. And a lot of these are free. So my previous company, we had Salesforce, which is a couple of 100,000 yearly subscription, but there are smaller solutions for smaller organizations, smaller companies there, and I would recommend that you look into it, because it's really, really important you capture the data in the sense that without so many customers contact you, but without properly capturing all that information, you wouldn't know. An example is you might be selling a box that is red and blue. A customer calls and asks, do you have it in black? Right? No, you don't, and you hang up, right? Another customer calls tomorrow, asks, do you have it in black? No, right? All the sales guys and the decision makers see, if you don't record it, is that, okay, we sold 10 of blue, 15 of red, so we need to produce red. But you don't see 5 customers asking you for black. So it's absolutely imperative, whether it's into a high-level software like CRM tool like Salesforce, or whether it's Zendex, or much more cheaper range of options. Even if it's typing it on your Excel manually, you need to gather this data. Yeah, because sometimes you miss out a whole picture by not gathering. And what I would recommend is that if you are capturing, and when I say capturing all this contact, meaning whether it, I mean, some people purely do, I do most of my shopping now on Instagram, messaging the organization asking, right? If you should have it as a channel, if you can support it. If you can't support it, you're missing customers and you're pissing off customers. So whatever the channels that you have to support it. You have to set timelines. If someone contact messages you at 11 in the night on Instagram, set a automated saying these times, or if you want this, come at this. So you need to make sure all your gates are manned. Customer journey mapping is making sure you know where your gates are at, and the gates are managed properly, that nothing is slipping in or slipping out, right? So like I said, it doesn't have to be expensive solution, but it has to be these small things. Have you guys checked on, when you Google your company, the little box that comes up with the details, are those valid? Are the call to action buttons when you press, do they work? Even in your website, when you say help, the most annoying thing I find is say click here for help, and that help link is not working. Right? So have you checked that? Has someone within the last 3 months gone to your website and checked if this is working? If the content on help, the FAQs are up to date. Again, a lot of the time you do a FAQ so customers can quickly get an answer. 1 year later, it's absolutely outdated, but you have it in your site. So a lot of, because Sri Lanka in general, especially, has not reached out to higher planes of customer experience, these basics are double more important. You need to pay attention to those details. Again, you have to put yourself in customer's shoe, and then it's easier for you to understand again, this is part of that customer journey mapping, where you know, what would I do and what would I want to feel? What do I feel when I'm doing this? So that you need to have that feeling and part of it, and make sure it's more. You can't go for bigger, like this Apple example. You can't go for those things until you fix your ground level, small basic ones, because nothing worse than for me, and not just my customer experience background. For me, if I go to something and if some basic thing doesn't work, for me, I have no trust in that company, because you're not looking after the basic thing that brings you sales. Why would I want to do business with you? So those are very important in terms of your system. You can have 5 gates. You can have Instagram, Facebook, your customer portal on your own website, all that. That's fine. You can have one. Doesn't matter. You can have one, and every time someone contacts you on Instagram or Facebook and say, auto message, our customer service is these hours on this number, please call this number. That's absolutely fine. There's no, yes, more the better, but what you do has to be done correctly. To start off, has to be clearly communicated. Everything is about communication. I can't stress the importance of communication. Any questions? We are running out of time, Brenda. Could we take this on to the next session, or could we take another 10-15 minutes today?
How do the rest of you guys feel? Do you want to stay on for another 15 minutes, guys? How many more slides do we have left, Sandeep?
About 5 slides.
About 5. I think it might be worth just moving it on to the next session, Sandeep, just so that we can dive in a bit more.
Correct, because up until now it's more of the concept, but I will talk more in the next couple of slides, it's more the practical, like what I just spoke about, the closing the gates or managing the gates. It will be a little bit more practical on that side. So maybe we can do it the next time.
Okay, great. And also if people just want to try out doing the customer persona exercise, and then if they can bring it to the next session, maybe Sandeep, you can answer any queries they have there too, right?
That will be, hopefully everyone does bring it so we can have a little bit more interactive session the next time.
Super, yeah. So everyone listening on, will be having a follow-up session the same time next week. We'll use the same link as well that you can join into.
We'll send a calendar.
And we'll send a calendar invite as well. So if you have any questions, there's a lot of information that Sandeep's gone through. So if you could just like digest it and come back with your questions, I think next week, that'd be great. Yeah. And also in the meantime, if you do have any questions, just send us a message, email, so that Sandeep can probably prep for it as well for next week.
Sure. I mean, if you can take a couple of minutes, I can answer any questions on today's bit as well. If anyone wants to ask any questions now. I'm a bit torn when there's no questions. Either I made no sense at all, or I made like perfect sense.
I have a question for you, Sandeep.
Sure.
With customer experience, you know, there's always, as the owner of the business, you know, you always have to, you know, there's that principle, is the customer always right? I want to know whether you think that the customer is always right, or is that...
That's a really good question. And customer is always right, customer is the king, sort of slogans that's like driven into our heads. For me, I would say customer is right transactionally, right? If you are taking a transaction, even if you did everything right, customer is still right, because it's a transaction and we need to make sure the customer is fully satisfied at the end. But if it's continuous improvement cycle, doing changes to your business, your products, your services, yes, you take the customer's feedback, but customer is not always right, because you know more than the customer when it comes to your business and your organization. You know better. So when it's an overall picture, customer is not always right. But transactionally, your customer service satisfaction will greatly improve if you treat the customer as always right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I guess I think in the last 3 years, what I've learned is it's all about creating relationships with your customers, right? And
Correct.
that point of view, I can argue both sides, and that's always my challenge. But yeah, no, I hear you.
No, and even though when I say customer is transactionally right, that doesn't necessarily mean you are forced to give a discount or a offer or go. You have to. There are points where you still stand still, but verbally, how you interact, when you interact, especially, then the customer is always right. And I can't count the times I have said on the phone repeatedly, I understand what you say is right, when I know it's wrong, and we have different policies. But sometimes you say the customer is right just to make them happy, which is fine. You're not losing anything. He's happy. So it's transactionally, that's fine. A good example of this is when Sony wanted to launch the Walkman, they had a focus group of customers, and everyone, I don't know the exact number, but 90% is what I read, is said that this. So they were at a stage, they were using cassette players. So they did Walkman. No, this sounds like a very stupid idea. How this thing? Sony didn't listen to them, and then Walkman was a thing for good almost a decade. So I think when it comes to a product and your this thing, you take your feedback. Absolutely, you have to take the feedback, but that doesn't mean the customer is always right. But transactionally, you keep the customer happy by making them think they're right. If that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Right. If there's anything else,
If they're happy, we are happy.
exactly.
How would you deal with, for example, we have deliveries, but we have a separate delivery partner in the system. So generally what happens is it's generally done through newsletters. So how would you deal with the delay from their side? Because your overall, when you take my company, the customer takes the delivery as ours as well, right? So if there's a delivery, like the issue from their side.
When you say their side, who yours? It's a supplier.
Delivery partners,
Yeah.
Yes, the partners, right? How would you feel that you yourself feel like you're the customer to them and you are disappointed, but how would you also try to keep your end customer?
Right. So
Can you repeat that question, Sandeep, so then everyone in the audience could also.
the question is, when you are dealing with third parties, and correct me if I'm wrong, or your suppliers, let's say a delivery delay to the customer is because of the suppliers, or could be another problem arising because of the suppliers, right? And the thing is, okay, for me, again, one of the things I really despise is when there's something goes wrong, the company says, oh, our delivery partner,
Exactly.
and sometimes they even say, our technical department had a problem. For me, I don't care whether your technical department or your person sitting next to you. I pay my money to company XYZ. You are the one I have a contract with. So whether it's internally or your third party supplier, as a customer, I don't care, and it's not my problem. I paid you. So in that situation, if you are the company, you should treat the customer thinking that's his mindset, and you're also the customer of your supplier. So you should also raise the grievances and make sure steps are put in place that it doesn't happen again. Because a lot of the companies have suppliers, and again, unfortunately, if you are the middle person selling directly to customer, it's your responsibility. It doesn't matter if it's a third party or even if it's for me, and something that I've been drilled from where I've learned stuff is never say, oh, our technical team is doing that, or it's with our accountant. I don't care. Not dealing with you and accountant separately. I pay the company XYZ. I want that service and I solve it. And if you have an issue, solve it. I don't want explanation saying it's other department. It doesn't make it look any better on you, because it's in fact, in my eyes, it'll make you look worse. So yeah, I hope you answered that question. So end of the day, if it's your suppliers, but if something goes wrong, it's your problem. But you need to pull up your suppliers, and that is why again the SOP comes into place. Based on you do a SOP between or SLA that you make sure that doesn't happen, and there's penalties if it does. Any more quick questions?
Yeah, I think that's all the time we have, Sandeep, for today.
Right, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So before we wrap up, I just want to say thank you for your time, Sandeep, and for the amazing content that you put together. And I hope the folks that joined the session found everything very useful. And we hope that you'd come back next week with more questions after you go through some of this material. We will have this video of this session made available through our YouTube channel, so you can tune in and then revisit it. And if you need access to the presentation or the videos that's presented, please let us know. You'll have my email, suresh@hatch.lk, and we can take it from there. So Sandeep, thanks again. And thank you everyone for joining today. Have a wonderful evening, guys.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.